Anthony Chisholm, Assistant Minister for Regional Development, Mr Jim Betts, Secretary of the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts, and of course all the officers of the department. Assistant Minister Chisholm, do you or Mr Betts wish to make an opening statement?
Morning, Chair. No thanks, but I believe Mr Betts does.
Thank you. Mr Betts.
Thank you, Chair. On the 16th of October 2023, less than a week ago, I received a letter from Senator Canavan, written on behalf of opposition senators, which contained an extensive list of requests for information. We are this morning tabling a package of documents, which you can see over here, which responds to a number of those requests. In his letter, Senator Canavan is highly critical of the department's handling of questions taken on notice at the committee's hearings on the 22nd and 23rd of May. Indeed, he impugns the reputation and integrity of the department in the following terms. Referring to the 197 questions taken on notice at the hearings, Senator Canavan says, quote, "It reflects poorly on the quality and professionalism of the APS and of this department in particular that senior officials are either unable because of a lack of knowledge or unwilling to answer senators' questions." I do not think that that is a fair or reasonable criticism, and I do not intend to let it go unanswered. The first point I will make, for context only, is to highlight the sheer scale of the programs the department is managing, and therefore the challenge of answering questions of detail asked without notice. There are, for instance, 26,098 projects merely within the sub-programs of the infrastructure investment pipeline across black spots, road safety, roads to recovery, bridges renewal, heavy vehicle safety and productivity, remote roads and local roads and community infrastructure, plus a further 2,689 projects funded through our various grants programs, which may go some way to explaining why sometimes questions of detail need to be taken on notice. That said, I've asked my team to do everything they can to answer questions in the room today, even if the data takes some time to gather, and even where senators themselves ask us to provide the information on notice as they often did at the May hearings. Turning to the department's performance in responding to questions on notice, the senator is correct in saying that 197 questions were taken on notice at the May hearings. I note, however, that notwithstanding 18 hours of oral evidence provided by the department, senators still tabled an eye-watering 208 further questions after the hearing. This figure excludes the 473 questions asked by Senator McKenzie, which was subsequently consolidated into just 2 answers. All up then, the department was faced with the task of answering 405 questions on notice from this committee, in addition to the 285 asked of it by the Environment and Communication Committee. This represents a significant increase in the volume of questions on notice that the department is required to answer, a 160% increase against the October 2022 hearings and a 500% increase against the March 2023 hearings for this committee alone. Recognising the likely challenges associated with responding to such a large volume of questions within the timeframe stipulated by the committee, the Acting Secretary wrote to Senator Sterle on the 4th of July to foreshadow that we were unlikely to meet the tabling deadline of the 14th of July, but would, quote, "endeavour to answer the questions in an expeditious manner and provide responses through to the committee as the necessary approvals are obtained." Subsequent to that letter being issued, by the 22nd of September, that is a full month in advance of today's hearing, 343 questions on notice have been answered and communicated to the committee, which is 85% of the total. By the date of receipt of Senator Canavan's letter, which presumably opposition senators consider a reasonable period of notice for these hearings, that figure had risen to 96%. As of today, 100% of questions have now been answered. I would note, in the context of the significant expansion in requests from senators, that the department does not get supplementary resources to handle these increased requests. We rely instead on our staff working long hours and through weekends. And I want to take this opportunity to thank those staff and assure them that I have the greatest respect for their diligence, knowledge, integrity and professionalism. I am proud of them. Turning now to the supplementary information requests in Senator Canavan's letter of the 16th of October. As I said, we have this morning tabled a large amount of material, some 1,300 pages, I believe, in response to those requests, consistent with the practice adopted for past hearings. There are, however, some requests in Senator Canavan's letter to which we are unable to respond. For instance, the report of the Independent Strategic Review of the Infrastructure Investment Program is currently subject to negotiation with states and territories, and in any case is due for Cabinet consideration shortly. In response to certain other requests, particularly those which go beyond previous requests in their scope and or relate to matters which may be considered sensitive, we have had regard to the long-standing guidance contained in the document Government Guidelines for Official Witnesses before Parliamentary Committees and Related Matters. Sections 8.1 and 8.2 of those guidelines are relevant here, particularly paragraph 8.1.3, which indicates that, quote, a request should be referred to the Minister if it would raise issues of a sensitive nature. Since a number of the requests in Senator Canavan's letter appear to go beyond what has been requested, let alone provided, in the past, I suggest he consider reframing it as a written request to the relevant Minister. In regard to the submission of draft questions on notice to ministers and the timeframes associated with their approval, I understand that there is already an established process for ministers to report relevant information to the Senate President under Senate Order 21. Finally, I'd like to reiterate my gratitude to the hard-working and dedicated staff in my department, not least our much-loved colleague Simone Bowers, who is unable to attend today's hearings through ill health. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr Betts. Before we go to Senator Canavan, if I can just, it's early stages, we've got a lot to get through. Is there any opportunity that we think we will get to all our witnesses today? I know you can't answer that quite yet.
Yes,
okay, thanks, Senator Canavan. All right. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Secretary. Welcome, Minister. I do want to put on the record that 400 of the quants that you speak of around grants were applied with, and I quote, read the Canavan response. So let's, let's be honest.
Refer to the information
and I
that we provide.
fully appreciate how hard-working the staff in your department are.
Well, that's nice to have that clarified. Thank you.
Never with a doubt. When did you commence with the department, Mr Betts?
From memory, 11th of July 2022.
Okay, thank you. Now, the department underwent a capability review.
Correct.
At the instigation of the APS Commissioner. I understand that was undertaken between February and May this year.
Yes, the department volunteered to be a member of the pilot program for the capability review, yes.
And could you update the committee on the findings of that review?
Yeah, sure. It's a report which is in the public domain, and therefore senators are able to access it. I've got a copy here. So it's a report which covers a wide range of different issues. It's, as the report acknowledges, the department's contributions can, and this is a quote, continue to challenge, inspire and remind us about the importance of the work it does now and in the future. It refers to us as an organisation with an unbelievably broad set of functions, and its starting point is the machinery of government change which created the department in 2020, immediately on the eve of COVID, and the challenges associated with that, and the lack of resourcing that was available and continues to be available for the consolidation of things like our information and communications technology. The report looks ahead 5 years and identifies a series of areas that the department should address as it strives to be the best department it can be. A number of those are already in train: the development of a workforce plan, an integrity strategy, an ICT roadmap to address the issues I've referred to, a review of our performance management framework, the broadening of our footprint outside Canberra as we build up our regional presence and our presence in capital cities, flexible working, the reform of our corporate services function, which Ms Bridger is leading, and greater engagement with states and territory colleagues, but also with other government departments where there are points of intersection. So it's a broad-ranging report, as I say, a 5-year perspective. We have established a series of working groups within the department to action all of the recommendations in the capability review. A formal response is due to the Australian Public Service Commission, I believe, during the course of November, and I believe that that will be published as well, so you'll be able to see all of the findings which are already in the public domain, plus the department's proposed response to them.
Okay, thank you, Mr Betts. So have you briefed Minister King? And I think you know the complexity of the number of ministers your department serves, but Minister King is your senior minister?
Yes.
Yes. And has she been briefed on the findings of the capability review?
Yes, I believe we provided a copy of the review and a short covering brief identifying the key issues, yep.
Yep. And when was that provided to her?
I will check that and I will come back to you during the course of today.
Thank you. Did the minister ask you to take any particular action in response to the issues raised by the review above, beyond the measures you told the reviewers you're undertaking?
No, I explained to the minister the process by which we would be going about formulating our response and reporting it to the APSC, and assured her that all issues would be appropriately addressed, and she was satisfied with that.
Okay. And will she be briefed in an ongoing way as you make your way through that process, or a final response kind of brief?
Certainly, if we think there are any issues which require the minister's attention, then we'll bring those to her attention, but I wouldn't be surprised if we provide her with a progress report in due course, yeah.
And was that, just by the by, was that provided to all your ministers or just the senior minister?
I'd have to check that. I think it was just to the senior minister, but I can check that. Yes, it was, yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you. I just want to read, for the record, some of the findings made by the capability reviewers. That the department is clear-headed about the resourcing and structural challenges, and you mentioned that in your remarks it faces, and limited maturity of its corporate and enabling services. That the department understands a business-as-usual approach isn't sufficient to address current and anticipated challenges. While there are pockets of excellence, many are at a conceptual or developmental stage and do not constitute a systematised or consistent operating style across the department. That the department must drive a culture with positive attitudes, that its enabling systems are not at the maturity level needed to support a department with a budget, scope, risk and geographic footprint of this scale. The department needs to clearly articulate its purpose and what it is trying to achieve. Is the department clear on what it's trying to achieve?
Yes, it is. And if you refer to our corporate plan, which is in the public domain, you will see all of that set out. I think the challenge which the capability review has correctly identified is that we are, as I said before, an extraordinarily diverse department. So in the morning I might be having meetings on heavy vehicle charging. In the afternoon I might be having discussions around the National Gallery Australia. And when you have a department which is relatively recently created and you have such a broad diversity of functions, it can be challenging to come up with a compelling, simple narrative which unites all of those things. So the headlines which my predecessor generated around connecting Australians, enriching our communities and empowering our regions, I think is a good attempt to put a frame around everything we do. But the more you try and find a single, simple statement which unites such a diversity of functions, the more you risk coming up with something which is anodyne or such a level of generality that it doesn't resonate with people. So it is a challenge associated with the diversity of the department and with its relatively recent creation.
Thank you. One of the other findings was the department must combat a perception of being insular and reluctant to accept advice and expertise from external partners and stakeholders, and to conduct more face-to-face community and stakeholder engagement outside of Canberra. Do you have a plan to get outside of Canberra, and given particularly the scope of your department's work?
Yeah, so we can talk about, and I'm happy to provide you with some information around our regional staffing footprint, but I think the point the reviewers were making legitimately was we can always do more to engage directly with our stakeholders. They pointed to some areas of good practice, but as you correctly say, the challenge is to take good and turn it into standard practice across the department. So I think they particularly identified the success of the consultations which led through to the production of the National Cultural Policy at the end of January, and also to the engagement with people with disability, which enabled us to inform policy positions around the reform of disability access standards for public transport. But I completely accept their review that we need, the review's recommendations that we need to do more. We need to do more in terms of our bilateral relationships with other departments within Canberra. So we recently held a a bilateral with the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water, and I propose to do the same with other departments on a regular basis, but also to lift the standard of our engagement with key stakeholders, whether it's in the aviation sector or the freight and logistics sector. The refresh of the freight and logistics, national freight and supply chain strategy gives us an opportunity, for instance, to do that. But the call to arms around the need to be much more transparent and open in our engagement is one which I accept as being entirely legitimate and intend to respond to.
Thank you. On page 17 it says staff spend too much time and effort on low-value work. What is low-value work in the context of this?
Low-value work is often workarounds associated with antiquated IT systems that don't speak to each other.
Is that part of the, the commentary that those staff in the communications department that got mogged in found that their IT systems went backwards rather than?
Yeah, and that is something which is frequently reported by staff on the communication side of the department. But merely having different IT systems which do not speak to each other is problematic. We have an ICT roadmap which will deliver significant results by November, which will enable us to go significantly down the path of improving that. But yeah, machinery of government changes are often regarded by those instigating them as costless, but the public servants in the department concerned, and I saw this in New South Wales as well, often live with clunky systems and processes which aren't properly integrated for a long time. Plus, there's always the challenge within any government department or any bureaucracy of ensuring that obligations around the reporting of data and so on are fit for purpose and not excessively, unnecessarily onerous. And I also think that we could reduce unnecessary work within the department by delegating more and empowering our staff more rather than requiring multiple levels of approval. These are all sensible things called out in review.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I welcome your frank assessment here, and I know you know that this capability assessment had very serious criticisms of the department that were exposed, but that you are obviously committed to addressing those. Can I ask you to take on notice, and I will provide it in writing so you don't have to get everyone to go through the Hansard, but about the steps that you and the senior executive are taking to address the issues raised in the capability review. I know you're going to be reporting to the Public Service Commissioner, but I think this committee, as your oversight committee here in Parliament, would appreciate similarly being informed of the steps that you and your senior executive are taking to address these serious failings. So
at the risk of, I don't want to take questions on notice and then subsequently be criticised for doing so, so I'm quite...
Well, it's the answers, Mr Abetz, where they just say, I refer you to Senator Canavan's response.
I'm not sure how that's relevant, but OK, so we've established a whole series of working groups, as I say, to address the key areas, but we can provide you with more detail on that. And just to close out the question you asked, the brief to Minister King was provided on the 25th of August.
Thank you. I want to specifically now turn to the review's detailed assessment of agency capability and the department's ratings, and I know it's in the public domain, but I will seek leave to table pages 18 to 20 of the capability review, so senators actually have a copy of what I'm now turning to. And now I've given away... Oh, no, I haven't given away my copy of it. So just... Is the committee happy to...
Yes, leave is granted.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the department's been rated on 24 areas of performance capability. On page 18, the rating scale is described, and it's consistent across all the capability reviews. The best rating is a solid green tick, called leading, where agencies mostly demonstrate excellent capability, actively participates in learning and focuses on continuous improvement. Mr Betts, how many solid green ticks did your department receive?
I think you've got the answer to that, haven't you, Senator, on the following pages?
Well, how many? How many solid green ticks did the department get?
None.
None. The second is the weak green tick, which is embedded, which talks about mostly demonstrates good current capability. Gaps are identified. Looking for future gaps. How many weak green ticks did your department reach out of the 24?
1.
And what was that for?
That was, as you know, staff engagement and experience.
We might return to that a little later. The second worst rating is developing, where there's weakness or gaps in current capability, concerns about the ability to deliver future capability, weaknesses not systematically being addressed. Can you confirm that the department received 20 orange ratings, including for leadership and governance, embodies integrity, values, culture and behaviour, purpose, vision and strategy, capability to do its job, financial management, procurement, contract and project, program management and risk management?
Yes.
So 20 out of the total 24. And then we have the worst rating, which is emerging, where agencies mostly demonstrate critical weakness in current capability, the ability to deliver on short and medium term, no awareness of capability gaps. What specific actions, Mr Betts, has the Minister asked you to undertake to address the 3 areas where the department got the red rating: critical weaknesses around cybersecurity, asset management and weaknesses in review and evaluation?
As you know, we provided a brief to the Minister where we identified the actions that we were going to take to address those issues. It's my accountability as Secretary to ensure that they are addressed in a timely fashion. Sometimes that will require resourcing. That's something which is acknowledged in the review. And resources are sometimes hard to come by in a constrained budget environment. But I keep the Minister regularly updated on how we're travelling in terms of the implementation of the ICT roadmap. But it's my principal accountability, not hers. I'm the accountable officer for the department.
So she's accepted that there are serious deficiencies within her department and she's prepared to leave that responsibility to you, and she hasn't expressed any concern or additional reporting other than what you brief up?
The Minister, all of my ministers, including Minister King, provide me with regular feedback on how the department is performing, and I provide them with regular updates on how the department is seeking to lift its performance. And you're right to say that on the face of it, those ratings are highly critical, but I would frame it in the context of a 5-year forward look about where we need to be, and the important framing statements which the review itself made around the relatively recent nature of the machinery of government change and the underinvestment associated with that, not least as we went into COVID. So, yeah, absolutely, we need to lift our game in key areas. That's the whole purpose of having a capability review. We didn't do it to get a pat on the back. We did it with the purpose of improving. And I think any fair-minded person who reads the contextual commentary, which extends over 20 or 30 pages in the review, will see that those ratings alone do not convey the essence of the review report, which is that there are many good things going on in the department. The point is to systematise them. But the weaknesses in the area of IT and related systems are absolutely acknowledged and have been acknowledged very frankly by me and by my predecessor over a considerable period of time. So,
Secretary, in the annual report you say since the launch in 2021 the department's values have been embedded within our culture, but the capability review would suggest quite strongly that those values haven't been embedded throughout the organisation. So why would the annual report, which a lot of people rely on as an accurate document, be in direct contrast with the capability review when it comes to these types of things?
Because the principal thing that the values of an organisation speak to, if they have any meaning, is around staff engagement. Staff engagement is measured regularly through the census. The rating, as you've said, is a good one for staff engagement in the capability review. But to be honest, you never arrive at an end point where you have the perfect culture. It continues to be a work in progress. The census results, which will be published in due course, will show that whilst staff engagement has increased marginally, it is being in part affected adversely by the fact that our IT systems are still not fit for purpose, and by the workloads that public service are carrying, which I refer to in my opening statement, and that does have an effect on staff morale.
So, sorry, Mr Betts, are you blaming staff morale on questions on notice?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that
just
questions
checking.
on notice add significantly to the workload of the department, but that workload is already significant as we set about implementing all the government's commitments and policies.
So has the department's engaged PwC to support your work around investing in staff and increased capability?
The department, for a period of time, engaged PwC. That's right, predating the adverse publicity around PwC and the policy responses that were put in place after that. We had a contract with PwC which supported the transformation of our corporate services, something which the capability review acknowledged and supported. That contract, I believe, has now come to an end.
That's correct. So how much was that contract for?
We will get that information for you as quickly as we can, and certainly.
And so what I mean, you say the corporate services, what specifically around corporate services did the PwC work?
The functions which report to Ms Bridger, which range from ICT to finance, integrity and governance, human resources, property, the full package of corporate services. So on becoming Secretary and on Ms Bridger being substantively appointed as Chief Operating Officer, and not least in the light of the emerging conclusions of the capability review, we set out on a path to transform our corporate services function. We led a contract to PwC to support us in doing that. That contract has now reached its conclusion, and Ms Bridger may have access to the information you've asked around how much was spent, but the contract is now closed.
Good morning, Marie Bridger, Chief Operating Officer. So PwC commenced in March and they completed their work on the 31st of August, and they were engaged to do some discovery work about our current state. We already had a good sense that we needed to do work on many of our systems. We also wanted their assistance to help us pull together a strategy and a roadmap, and that work is now informing the capability review action plan work. We also asked them to help us come up with an operating model for the delivery of corporate services moving forward, and provide a bit of project support. So all of that work, as I said, is informing the capability review action plan work. The total expenditure for their engagement was $1.2 million.
$1.2 million for March to August, and did this go through usual procurement processes of the department?
Yes, it did.
Just remind me what they are, please.
Yep, sure. We used the AFP Capability Support Panel, and we went to market. We received responses from 4 vendors.
Okay, thank you. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Chair, ultimately. Just when did you receive the capability review, or the final report?
We'll check that and we'll let you know.
Have you got a my notes say that it was conducted between February and May, I think. Is that?
And you briefed the Minister in August.
August,
Yeah,
right.
so it would have been early August, I think.
Probably around
We'll
there.
get a
Yes.
precise date.
The date was determined by the APSC because they're the ones that manage the process. So the publication date was coordinated with them. We'll get that date.
Right. So what specific actions have been taken since you received the report?
Okay, well, we've just been asked to take some of that on notice, but I will therefore answer it. So the capability review report has been published. It's been circulated to all of our senior executives. We had an off-site with all of those executives a month or 2 ago.
Correct.
To consider the findings of the capability review and of the census results for the current year. We agreed at that off-site that we would establish 5 working groups to address the key themes within the capability review, involving staff from across the department and at different levels of seniority within the department, so we had the broadest possible span. We've set timeframes for those working groups to come back to the executive leadership team of the department with recommendations on how we can practically respond to those reviews, the improvements in our processes we can instigate, the new processes that we can establish, and the expectation is that will be reported to our leadership team in the coming weeks. But that will be the start of a process. The action plan that we'll be delivering to the Australian Public Service Commission at the end of November, and the work we're doing internally will describe a work program which will then be rolled out in the coming months and year.
Have you actually taken any action? All of that just sounds like discussion. So you've convened meetings. Have you actually made any decisions or changes to personnel or working arrangements to respond? I'm asking this because...
I'm happy. I'll tell you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Mr Betts. Yeah.
So we are well advanced in terms of the development of a workforce plan. That succession planning, workforce capability planning, which was recommended in the capability review, is at an advanced stage. Big focus within the department on integrity, not least in the light of some very critical findings from the ANAO in relation to programs previously administered by the department. The ICT roadmap, which will reach its interim conclusions in November. We are reviewing our performance management framework, not least in the context of APS broader reform. We're taking steps to broaden our recruitment outside Canberra, including engaging more staff in our regional centres. Marie has Ms Bridger has just described the pretty fundamental re-engineering of our corporate services function, and I've also described some of the measures that we're taking to better engage with state and territory colleagues and with external stakeholders. So there is a work program which is already underway to address the capability review. We're not kicking the can down the road in any way, but we believe that the best response is one which is owned by as many people across the department as possible, and that it's the accountability, particularly of our senior leaders, to step up and take responsibility for its delivery.
Well, so there's 24 categories here. 23 of the 24 have been found with weaknesses, because the amber sort of yellowish tick says there are weaknesses or gaps, and there are concerns about abilities to deliver future capabilities. And then, of course, the red one's even worse, the 3 of those. I'm just not getting, Mr Betts, that there's a substantial enough response here. This is a damning report. To have 23 of the 24 finding weaknesses, and there seems to be just working groups and discussions. I'm struggling to understand that the response is consistent with the damning nature of this report.
Well, the word damning is your word. It's not the word of the reviewers who actually spent...
23 of 24. It's amazing.
The reviewers who could have used the word damning but didn't. In fact, they acknowledged the hard work of the department. They acknowledged the very open and honest engagement they got from our staff. And they made recommendations which we are in the process of implementing, and I don't accept that it's all just talk or that we're not responding in a proportionate fashion. I've just listed 10 areas of action which the department is already substantively taking, plus the process that we're embarked on to identify more steps that we can improve. But remember, this is a capability review which looks 5 years into the future about what best practice looks like. Other departments have undertaken similar reviews and had similar ratings. These problems don't arise in the period since I became Secretary. To the extent that we've got significantly underfunded ICT systems, they predate my appointment, they predate the current government. They are chronic problems which cannot be addressed overnight. But there is a lot for the department to be proud of. We're delivering many, many things, as you'll hear in the coming 8 hours as we describe to you the work programs that we have underway, and that's why I'm so proud of my staff.
So none of the results are your fault, Mr Betts?
I take complete accountability for the state of the department.
You didn't. You were blaming your predecessors.
But I don't think the capability reviewers would suggest that all of the challenges facing the department started on the 11th of July, or for that matter on the 21st of May.
So, just so I can get the time frame right, it's done between March February and May. Final draft is briefed up to the Minister mid-August.
It's received by the Department from the Public Service Commission in early August and briefed to the Minister in
within
late
a couple of weeks. Excellent timing. So when did the Department receive the draft report?
We received a series of draft reports from the reviewers.
When you went on leave.
Yeah, so I went on leave at the end of June.
Yeah.
So.
Very early July, we would have received the first draft.
Yeah.
And then there were a series of meetings with the senior team and the reviewers to basically talk us through the report. And you do the usual fact-checking in a report, which we did, so we had the opportunity to...
Were there many factual inaccuracies in the report?
No, the reviewers did a good job, not least because they had a lot of support from departmental staff as they did it. But there are also questions of clarification that we wanted to ask to make sure that the review pointed us very specifically in the direction of the issues that they were identifying. For instance, the question of, or the description of the department as being insular, we wanted to understand precisely what the reviewers had in mind there so that we could respond more effectively. And they were very generous in coming back to us and having discussions with the leadership team to make sure that we were clear on what they were truly saying.
So the first draft was received July. Then there's a series of iterative meetings and drafts with track changes going backwards and forwards?
We weren't given the opportunity to track change. We would provide our feedback.
And then a new draft would arrive.
Essentially, they drafted the document. It's not a departmental document.
So how many of those iterative processes were entered into through July, given you got the final report start of August?
We'll see if we can get that information for you, but it would also include face-to-face meetings and discussions with the reviewers to understand what they're saying, so we can provide dates.
So I appreciate that. There's meetings and then, you know, what we said, we meant this.
Correct.
I would appreciate that. So the reviewers were Robin Cruck?
Correct.
Adam Fennessy and Roxanne Kelly?
Correct.
All. Mr Betts, have you previously worked with any of the three reviewers?
I've worked with Adam Fennessy, who is now, as you know, the Secretary of the Agriculture Department, so you'll have opportunities to ask him. You might want to ask him about the capability review on the Agriculture Department.
Not my job anymore. No, but he'll be with us tomorrow, so we can.
Yes,
we can do
so
that.
I worked with Adam for a number of years when we were both in the Victorian government, in Victorian Public Service.
And you haven't had the opportunity to work with the other two?
No. Robin Cruck was a member of the Independent Planning Commission in New South Wales when I was Secretary of the Planning Department, but that was an independent planning commission, so
So did you contact, I know you were on leave at the time, but did you personally contact Ms Cruck or Mr Fennessy through the period of the review?
Well, I had meetings with them, yeah.
Yes, but in the draft, during from the draft arriving to the final report arriving?
I don't believe so. I'd bump into them on the street, but that's about it.
Okay, just at IGA, but not a deliberate phone call or text?
Yeah, the IGA on near Alinga Street.
There you go.
No, yes, but no. We will document for you and provide, hopefully today, the timings of the meetings, the face-to-face meetings that took place with the reviewers. But no, it's not like there was a lot of extensive traffic. I was actually really happy with the capability review. Notwithstanding the way it's been characterised today, I think it gives us an excellent platform for improvement, and I'm not just saying that to be Pollyanna-ish. We didn't go into this because we wanted to be told everything was perfect, because we knew it wasn't.
No.
And in fact, our own self-assessment is very consistent with the findings of the capability review, because we know there are areas that we need to improve on. And our staff know that, and there's no point in
sugarcoating it.
Exactly. Yeah.
If other...
Senator Rennick has a question.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Look, just in regards to your opening statements this morning, how many questions in total were asked on notice of the department?
In total, across all committees, or just this committee?
Yeah, your department. Yeah, not across all committees. Just
well, my department spans two committees. So there
okay, well, both committees.
405 questions on notice asked from this committee, not including the 400 and something that Senator McKenzie asked that was subsequently answered through two answers. and a further 285 were asked through the Environment and Communication Committee.
Right, okay, but that's not your committee, or it is?
It is. I'm
That's
giving evidence
so
to it
400.
And
so
the
we've
same
got the
corporate
400.
services staff have to handle answers from that committee.
Okay, so how many people work in your department?
Just under 2,000.
Under 2,000.
Yeah.
So you've been asked 400 questions. That's one question per 5 staff, and what, you've got 20 days to answer it?
We also have other functions to perform.
Oh, I realise that, but you're basically complaining about answering one in every 5 staff having to answer one question over 4
I'm not
weeks to
complaining.
answer.
I'm not complaining. I'm pushing back on complaints from committee members that we were late in terms of the delivery of our questions on notice.
Well, isn't
I'm
that
explaining
an appropriate complaint?
that.
Excuse me, I'm asking the questions here. Isn't that an appropriate complaint if you've got 2,000 staff? Our job as senators is to ask questions, and you're complaining about us doing our jobs?
No, I'm not.
sorry, but if you've got 2,000 staff, okay, that's not too much to ask. Now, can I
Senator,
also...
we did cover this earlier, but I'm mindful of the time, but please keep going.
Okay, can I get on notice the salaries of the top 50 staff in your department, please, and the average salary across your entire staff? Thank you.
Senator White.
On notice.
Yeah, on notice. Yeah.
Okay, so you're asking me to take that on notice. Noted.
Yep, you should know that.
Now then.
Well,
Answer it now, Secretary. Answer Senator Rennick's question now then.
If I can, I will. I will source that information for you. It will be de-identified because I'm not disclosing
de-identified,
privacy.
absolutely.
Yeah, if we can get those numbers for you today, we absolutely will.
And you made that very clear in your opening.
And can I be clear, Chair? I'm not challenging the Senate's right to ask us questions.
No, I know.
I am contextualising the department's response to those questions and the resource requirements necessary to answer them, and the very negative comments that were made about the department in Senator Canavan's letter.
And just to be clear, I'm contextualising it as well. You've got 2,000 staff. You've been asked one question per 5 staff over a 4 to 5 week period. Not too much to ask.
Right.
Thank you.
Point taken, but Mr Betts, you did make that very clear. Mr Betts, I have the call. I was talking, Senator. Mr Betts, you did make that very clear in your opening statement, and you did also make very clear that you will endeavour to answer every question, so you don't have to go back with nearly 1,000 questions on notice, hopefully, after this round of estimates. Senator White.
Are you able to tell us when the last capability review before this one was done of the department?
Certainly before my time, a number of years ago. We can find that out for you.
And the assessment of the agency's have other departments done capability reviews recently?
There were a number of departments that were part of the pilot program. We volunteered to be part of that. My understanding is that the Australian Public Service Commission was part of the first group, as was the Department of Agriculture.
Department of Health.
And Department of Health, sorry, yep.
So do you know how you compare to the Department of Health?
No, I don't know whether their report has been...
Their report has been published. I don't have the league table of them.
Okay, thank you.
Now, are we still on corporate matters?
Yep.
Who wants the call?
Rennick asked a question earlier.
I'm done.
He's done.
But, so they don't have to take it on notice, Chair.
No, they've already said they're going to try and find that out for him.
I mean, we can bring
No, I
it
know
back
you're
later
happy,
today.
but Mr Betts isn't, so let's if they've got the answer, they can give it.
Okay, so I've got some information for you here. How many staff, the top 50, did you say?
Yeah, what's the average? Well, you can give me the top 50 de-identified later on if you don't, but you can read out the top salaries of the department. That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, so apart from the secretary, I'm happy to tell you what my salary is.
Actually, I am interested in knowing what your salary is.
Okay, because it's in the public domain. I'll have to check exactly what it is because it's been adjusted recently. Secretaries are paid about, here we go, 928,340 total remuneration package.
Yep, okay.
Then there is, in the band 400,000 to 500,000, there is one staff member. In the range 300,000 to 400,000, there are 10 staff members. 200,000 to 300,000, there are 82.
Right.
So
okay. So if you're short of staff, maybe we could, to replace you, we could get 4 people paid, 200,000.
Okay, let's
Maybe
move
short of
on.
staff.
Seriously, we've been going quite well for the first 50 minutes.
Well, these are high salaries, Chair.
Yeah, I
These are
understand.
very high
Senator
salaries.
Rennick, we
and to
have
these
got
people
a list
complain-
as long as you of witnesses to get through today, and we're just we're
I don't set
Just
my own
making
salary,
the point.
Senator.
anyway. That's
We seem
right.
to have a culture issue here. that's been raised before by these guys, and I think that, we need to start scrutinising. This
Always
is what I
happens to
do
be
in
lectured on
management
culture by
accounting
senators.
in form of career. This is what we do. We go through line by line, look at who's performing, who's not performing. We look at rate of progress. One question per 5 staff, right, over a 4-week period is not hard. It's not a hard thing to do.
We took 197 questions on notice. You took 208, which you couldn't even ask in the sessions and had to ask afterwards. So it seems to be harder for you to ask the questions than for us to answer them.
Fair point. That's a fair point. Let's move on. We're still in
Senator
corporate
White,
matters.
I do
Sorry,
have
Ms.
some
Bridger.
answers to previous capability
Yeah,
reviews.
sure.
So,
Excuse me, can we just keep it civil? Ms. Bridger had been given the call, and you're going to provide an answer for a question that was asked earlier, Ms. Bridger, is that what
yes, I'd just like to, in former iterations of the Department of Communications had a review in 2015, the former Department of Regional Australia Local Government Arts and Sport in 2013, and the Department of Infrastructure and Transport in 2012.
Thank you. Now, Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Betts, is there a reason your employee census for 2023 hasn't been put up on the website yet?
Yes, so there are timeframes stipulated by the Australian Public Service Commission for the release of that census data, and we're complying with those.
When does it have to be up?
Right, I can get that for you if you'll bear with me.
I will bear with you.
Census will be late November.
And that's the last date it can be up?
That's the date when we've been asked to release it by the APSC. But we've shared it widely within the department.
Can I just be clear, because the annual report was dropped close to close of business Friday before an estimates hearing. So these timeframes aren't specific. You must put it must be up on X date. You have until X date to put it up on the website. Is that the case?
We'll just clarify that for you. It may be that the APSC has stipulated a precise date. Annual reports and so on get approved through ministers' offices, so we don't generally control the precise timing. The census results, I suspect that we will.
Yeah. So when was the annual report? It reminded me, when was the annual report sent up to the Minister's office?
There's a whole series of annual reports provided to the Minister's office.
Yes, I know. Well, for this section
we'll get that date for you.
Monolithic department, for this section, for the infrastructure... oh, no, you've got the whole lot here.
Yeah, the whole department.
So I'm assuming it would have had to be sent to all ministers' offices, all of your ministers, or... Is Minister King sign off on behalf of everybody?
Senator, I'll get the annual report timing for you.
Right.
I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get that for you in short turnaround. But also, I'll get clarification for you on the by date for the census. Yep, I'll get clarity. Is it we have to release it on a particular date, or is there a window? I'll get that for you.
Yep. Okay. So, have the census results been provided to your department's senior executives?
I've sent them all of the information to all of the senior executives.
And when was that done?
About a month ago. I'll check. I'll get a date for you.
Sorry, say that again, Mr. Betts.
I will check, but it was about a month ago.
About a month ago.
It predated the off-site session that we had, but we'll get more information for you on it.
Yep, thank you.
The publication of census report results is, as I understand it, something relatively new that's part of the APS reform that the current government has instigated, and I suspect that they haven't been published, certainly not in the same level of detail under the previous government.
No.
I have some dates here for you.
Great.
Our HR branch presented briefings on the results to the Secretary and SES on the 24th of August.
Yep.
With the department results sent to all staff on the 4th of September. Workshops and briefings have been facilitated by HR for each division throughout September to November to develop further insights and assistance for divisions to develop their action plans, because every team might have a particular thing they've got to address or they want to focus on. And here I've got, again, it'll be released on the department's website late November, but I'll go back and check that timing as to
whether
is it by
that's
a particular
decision
date
for you or whether it's Yeah. Whether you have any...
The fact that we've sent it to 2,000 staff suggests that we're not being very secretive about it.
Exactly. So can you table the results of that employee census for this committee?
They'll be published in late November.
Yeah, I think.
I have no problem with providing
Is the
the data.
census going to change as a result of these consultations that you've got planned between September and November?
No, the census, as its name suggests, is a census which is taken at a point in time. That was in around June. So the results are in, the results are fixed. I will just need to check with the Australian Public Service Commission, who I imagine would like to see the results of all departments published in a coordinated fashion. So it's kind of a bit out of my control.
Right. But it's not going to change.
No.
So what was the response rate of departmental staff participating in the census, and how many people?
The results will be published in late November, but the response rate from memory was about 88%, which is a pretty good response rate.
That's a very good response rate. So 79% in the 22 census that was undertaken between May and June. 79% of staff said, overall, I'm satisfied with my job, which was a 6% increase on the previous year and a 5% better than overall APS. What was this year's result?
They'll be published at the end of November. The overall engagement...
You don't know the answer to the question. You said that the results are in, they're not going to change.
That's right. So, but there is a process for the disclosure of those results, which is a whole-of-government process. So this is one where I will take it on notice only because I don't want to cut across processes which are not mine to determine. The one thing I would say is that staff engagement measured at an aggregate level increased marginally on last year's results. But there were some things that improved, some things that didn't.
And you're unable to talk to us about what improved and what didn't?
No, so we'll publish the results at the end of November, and then I'm happy to take any questions you have at subsequent hearings.
But we haven't actually ascertained whether it is a whole-of-government response on the day.
Well, we've been asked by...
Ms Bridger.
No, not yet.
So
I'll get that
we'll check.
information through the course of today.
So, in terms of, we've briefed the SES, the Secretary in August, all staff have got a copy. We've got a program of talking through the results and what we can all do to address the results from now until November. Has the Minister been briefed on the census?
I'm not sure. We'll have to check on that.
I'm happy to wait.
I don't have it here. Will you check?
But someone will.
If you want to wait, we can, but it might be a while.
And if so, when? Was it part of a verbal briefing that secretaries often have with ministers,
Certainly,
or was it a written briefing?
It probably was an oral briefing, and I meet with the minister many times a week, but a regular meeting, and I update her on general issues within the department, including census data.
And would you brief?
Sorry, Senator McKenzie. The media is in the room, so I'll just do the normal stuff, and I take it that nobody has a problem getting photographed. Okay, and you know the rules, mate, about paperwork and all that. Thanks, mate.
Last year's census indicated there were issues with staff perceiving their work group has the tools and resources needed to perform well, with only 56% of staff agreeing. What was this year's result?
Well, we've already gone through explaining to you that we'll be publishing the data in due course, and that we're going to check on what we can release, if anything, ahead of the APSC's general deadline. But I would say that that question principally relates to information and communications technology and is corroborated by the more specific questions we ask around ICT, and our ICT systems are nowhere near where they need to be.
Has the Minister directed you not to release the census report?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Like before the end date, the APSC?
The census data, it's a public service process.
This is a simple thing to... Sorry, and I'm looking at Ms Bridger because it is actually quite a simple thing to find out. Is it by the X date in November or on? And that is not a difficult adverb to
the note I've got says
reconcile.
In late November. So if I can get more specific than that, I will.
I will, because I can duck next door and ask him myself at some point this morning, which, if that makes it easier,
go for your life.
I will. Well, I just can't believe it's this difficult. Last year, the staff census reported 8% of the staff said they experienced discrimination in the past 12 months, of which 78% was discrimination within the department itself. What was this year's result?
Same answer, I'm afraid.
Did it go up or down? You know the answer to this question.
I actually don't off the top of my head. I don't have precise details. But
the staff, the 2,000 staff, have been sent the results of this. Your senior executive have had this in their hand for 2 months, and you are here before this committee about a staff census that is reported every year.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm not asking you to run through all the results, but the things that concern me is about staff feeling discriminated against within their own department. Is it going up or down?
And that may be reflective of the feelings of, for instance, First Nations staff and the experience that they've been through over the last few months.
Are we going to get to your record in employing First Nation staff?
Let Mr Betts answer the question, please.
Out of 2,000
Senator, can you let Mr Betts answer the question that you asked? Mr Betts, please carry on.
I don't have that figure at the top of my mind, but
what's the trend? Is it going up? Is it going down?
Marginally up.
Marginally up. Thank you.
I have some advice here, Senator. We've been advised by the APSC that the census cannot be published till the 29th of November.
Right, so it's a hard date.
Yeah.
And do you have any discretion around that, or it's a...
They've been told us that it cannot be published till the 29th.
And all departments who will be the same?
Essentially what they do is they give the departments time to, as a team and as a collective, to, you know, interpret the results, come up with action plans, etc., before it gets published. So at least then staff feel like they've got some sense in...
Agency.
Agency and control over what they want to do going forward.
Okay, excellent. On the matter of corruption, last year the census reported 95% of staff said they'd not witnessed corrupt behaviour. What was this year's result?
We cannot publish...
I don't expect you to give me the number, but you did give me the trend in your answer to the last question. Is it going up? Is it going down?
Again, from memory, it may have gone slightly up. That may well reflect the launch of our integrity strategy and the National Anti-Corruption Commission, which thankfully has raised people's awareness of and sensitivity to any suggestions of corruption within the department.
Correct.
So the more people are identifying these issues and calling them out, can be a positive trend.
And is it in a specific area of your department, the comms, the infrastructure, regional development specifically, or is they're just all aggregated?
No, I mean the results can be broken down by functional area. The only restriction on that is where breaking it down to a functional area means that there are very few staff within that area, and therefore questions of privacy may arise. But we will be able to compute that data in due course,
Okay, thank you. And so what are the top 3 responses for corrupt behaviours witnessed by staff in the 2023 census?
We will wait till the 29th of November and all will be revealed.
Okay, thank you.